right, everybody. Welcome. This is season 2 of Re-Educated, a podcast where we're going to rethink, relearn, and get re-educated on many topics related to us Black folk in the community of New Mexico. So for all of our listeners that are listening nationwide and all around the globe, we really appreciate you tuning in and hanging out with us to discuss some really important topics. So I guess we got to introduce ourselves or reintroduce ourselves. My name is Danni Golden, and I'll be one of your hosts, and I'm so glad to be joined by my co-host.
My name is Devon Williams. Hold on, I gotta think. Okay. Do I need to get a radio nickname or
like an alias?
Yeah,
right?
alias or something.
He said, "Hold on."
I'm like,
Devon Williams.
I'm like, not everybody can know my government and stuff. Like, shit, I might need a.
You might need an alias.
You know, just call me Dave.
Dave, okay.
Yeah, that's gonna be my alias.
All right, what's up, Dave?
What's up, Daddy?
Danni and Dave here, bringing you season 2 of Re-Educated. Just want to make sure you guys remember to go follow us on social media. You can follow the Office of African American Affairs. Of course, they are the wonderful office that allows us to be on this platform in the first place. So we got to show them love. You can go to the website, which is
oaa.state.nm.us. And you can go to all of our social media. So we have Instagram, we have Twitter, YouTube, and I believe you can also go to our Apple Podcasts and Spotify on there.
Yeah, beautiful. You can find us on all the platforms. So shout out, first of all, to Better Sense and M. Scott Loves Life, who did our intro music, which is lovely. I'm loving it even more every episode. So how are you doing?
No, I'm feeling good. Yeah. I mean, it's the weekend. You know, it's sunny outside. We've gotten past that cold spurt.
Yes, and now we're getting into some really good weather. Like, I feel like spring is definitely upon us. And so I love the warm weather, honestly. I could do without any winter or cold weather.
Yeah, me too. And I'm probably weird in the sense of I'll be the one in the hot tub during the summer. You know, that's how much I love the heat and stuff.
I'm with you on that for sure. Can't wait for hot tub times. But yeah, we are glad to have y'all here with us. This episode, we really wanted to just kind of get into a recap of what we talked about last season. We will be kind of revisiting some of the topics and going more in depth, but we'll also be incorporating some new, fresh topics and just chatting and breaking down. And like we always say, getting re-educated on some things. So.
Exactly. And one of the things, just to remind you all that these are the views and opinion of our own and not of the State Office of African American Affairs or any other government agencies, including the governor's office. And so just to let you know, they're not a part of this. This isn't them. This is just us.
Well, we're going to have a good time. We actually, I have a little list here of all of our topics from last season. Did you have like a favorite episode? I think honestly, from a content, not from a content standpoint, but from like just the feel of it, which one felt good to you?
I'm like torn because I had probably 3 that felt really good to me. Yeah. One would be the sports episode just because I'm very sports oriented due to me playing basketball at UNM and everything, and just coming from like a very sportsy family. And so I'll say that one. I'll also say the women's medical care and everything, and the disparities with women in the hospital. I think that was just one that really touched on a lot of things. And because I grew up with mostly women, it hit a little close to home, just seeing like what they go through and seeing something more or less in real time, not being there, but, looking at some very traumatic things in real time and stuff, which I won't go too much into it, but...
Yeah. I loved that episode. I feel like that episode, we had a great guest. First of all, Lisi came on, who was a nursing student at the University of New Mexico. So she had a lot of great insight, not only being on that side, on the inside of, the medical system, but also being a woman of color herself. So that was a really interesting episode. I loved all of our guests, but she was like just so great.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So that was good.
And then I would say my last one would be the Crown Act, just because of how pivotal, especially for New Mexico, we needed that piece of legislation put in. And I know we'll talk about it a little bit more as we go through the season, just to highlight the amazing work that the COC has done to get it passed through and it being official now.
Yeah, it is. So if you didn't know, the Crown Act has been passed in New Mexico. And like Devon was saying, we'll get into that. But big shout out to the people that did all the work and went through all the stickiness of getting that passed. There are a lot of people that will benefit and have wider protections because of it.
Exactly.
So we'll talk about that. Us being some of those people. I got braids in.
Yeah.
Devon has locks. I mean, we got to be able to express ourselves and come as ourselves 100% into whatever space that we're in. So that feels good.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think the first episode was the higher education one, where we specifically talked about Black cultural centers. And I also think that one was very dear to my heart, just because the Afro at UNM, they're the reason why I was able to push through with my bachelor's and get my master's, because when you're in sports, and I think I talked about it last season, it's very hard, specifically in New Mexico, to be connected to the Black community. And there's so many different things that are done to keep us away from the rest of the other students on campus, like us all living on South Campus and us having to go to the pit and going to the football field and all that being miles away from main campus. And now, with the new students, everybody's staying at Lobo Village. And so I was lucky just because I got to stay on campus.
Right.
And I got to connect with people at least my first year before having to be siloed at Lobo Village. But I say that to say the Afro, it was really just a great way to get back into and integrate it into the regular student body population, and specifically Black students on campus. Yeah. Because, again, we don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, I was so pleasantly informed by Brandy that came on and our guest, and just talking about what a huge role it plays for students. Like you said, it was a huge part of why you were able to push forward, and that support is so necessary. I mean, it's just hard being a college student in general.
Yeah.
Take it from me, from somebody who changed their major a bunch, and you just go through a lot as a college student. So I think that having that center, that Black Cultural Center, is so important to people's success.
Yeah.
So that was a really good episode.
Oh yeah,
I learned
definitely. No, me too. And then one of the harder ones to talk about, and one that really got me emotional, was the law enforcement one, which that one, and even now, I definitely think that we all stand in solidarity with our Asian brothers and sisters, because now they are dealing with similar stuff that we dealt with. You have this white man killing 8 of them, right? And now he's barely having any repercussions from doing that.
They're not even talking about him for what he is. They're trying to dance around it and say, if I hear this whole bad day thing one more time, I'm going to lose it. Like, this man did not have a bad day. He's a terrorist.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think this is moving forward, we're definitely going to have to address that. And it's timely because we're having so many more incidents, not only in our own community, but other communities of color have seen an increase in violence and attacks because of, white supremacy.
Exactly.
It's a thing, y'all. It really is. So, yeah, that was a hard episode. And that was coming right after, let's not forget all of this is happening in the setting of like a global pandemic.
Yes.
So we had, the law enforcement episode, and we were talking about all of the happenings, with losing Breonna Taylor and Elijah McClain and others. And in the midst of like lockdowns and all of that. So I really think that kind of added to the seriousness and the weight of what we're all dealing with as a community then and what we continue to deal with now.
Yeah, definitely. And I just think that this system is completely flawed and there's so many things that need to be dismantled. But I just think that we have to continue to shed light on what's going on in the discrepancies in treatment when it comes to Black people and people of color versus white people, because it's like you say, oh, this person has a bad day, but we're wrong place, wrong time, and we get shot and killed. Or, we have a situation that happened in, we're drug addicts, we're alcoholics, we're offenders, all these different things. And it's just a continual cycle that is organic in the way that it upgrades in discriminating Black people and people of color.
Yeah, you're saying basically it just reformulates itself. It just represents itself actually with stronger ways of oppressing us, So it really is important that we shed light, that we talk about it. Some people would say, like, what's talking going to do? But, talking and discussing and shedding light on things helps to educate people, which does, in fact, help the problem. If people are educated, a lot of it is ignorance. A lot of it is, people just not being in people's faces. So it's not on their like care about radar. So I'm glad that we have this platform where we're able to talk about important things, tough things.
Yes, definitely.
But important topics.
And just to add on to that before we go to the next one, really needing to change the certain narratives behind the way people view Black people and people of color. Because it's not just what you say, it's a lot of how you say it and the way that you shape the words that you're using. It's like that can destroy lives and destroy communities, and we're seeing it firsthand.
100%. Yeah, we are.
And so.
Yes. What is another one? We kind of touched on disparities of Black women in healthcare.
Yeah.
That was one of our next episodes. And I feel like that one was also, so we have these different sects of this, established white supremacy, kind of permeating our establishments, right? And so I was able to, talk more, and we were able to discuss drawing that parallel between how law enforcement is applied to us and how healthcare is applied to us. We don't get, just like law enforcement, we don't get the protection, we get the victimization.
Yeah.
We, in healthcare, we don't get the protections. They're supposed to be protecting our health. And in fact, they're harming us and killing us even in some situations. So that one was also a little bit heavy, I think, especially in light of, I think when we did that episode, there were actually a couple instances that were getting some media attention where one, for instance, there was a woman who went in and she was complaining of chest pains and they had her wait like, it was some ridiculous amount, like 10, 12 hours. And she actually ended up passing away. Okay. And so that, that is still happening. And I think that, we still have to continue to advocate for equal treatment and just better treatment in general of Black folk in those medical settings. So I'm sure that'll come up as we go along.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of health, I know another thing that we touched on was Black mental health.
Mental health, yeah.
And it just, with everything going on with the pandemic and with all this police violence and, just having these systems used to oppress us, it's more prevalent now than ever to really take care of yourself and do practices that help you with self-care and doing things that you love and that you want to do just to make sure that you're good, know. And again, with this society and specifically in New Mexico being minorities in the minority, it just makes it a little bit more difficult to really make sure that you're taking care of yourself because there's not a lot of spaces. And it's because of the pandemic, you can't physically go into certain spaces to interact with other Black people. But
technology helps, though. Yes. It really does. And we're in the age, it's 2021. We talked a lot about BetterHelp.com, which is a resource where you can go on and get very tailored, you take a quiz and, they ask you all of these really profound questions about what you want to get out of your, mental health professional, and they pair you up with someone. So that helps, even if you can't physically go see someone. I continue to see my therapist. I'm not seeing her as often because I'm not as, I feel okay these days, but I check in with her, because it's necessary. Like you were mentioning, with the pandemic and with the stress, people are losing jobs. And then we see all of, the stuff on TV. Every time you scroll through your social media, you're seeing a video that's traumatizing, about what's happening to us in the world. And so also we're in a world that doesn't really want to let Black people rest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I see that a lot of times when it's like, especially the professional world where it's just pushing, go, work until you're just sucked dry. So we say take care of yourself and self-care, knowing that it's not always that easy, but empowering you to do so because it's your right. Empowering you to just take a nap if you need to. You know what I mean? Because it really is your right. We really should be able to take care of ourselves. On that note, I actually read a study that white women get the most sleep out of all of the subsects. And I'll have to, check my resource on this. I'll give that to you guys just to make sure. But yeah, white women get the most sleep. And I thought that was really interesting because sleep is imperative for mental health. And we can't even get rest. So I want to make it, make sure that I talk about resources and things like that when it comes to us taking care of ourselves through the season. I feel like we should do that. Just offer those ways for people to take care of themselves.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's interesting. There's just this narrative of don't sleep. You're strong, you're powerful. You have to do this, and that. You have to push through. And so just to see how it's like completely opposite, a complete 180 from how they are and what
their experience
exactly versus you all. It just baffles me how just, again, the narrative behind self-care and being able to make sure you're good and being able to get essentials like sleep. It's, I don't know. Isn't
that crazy? Like, we're in a society where the disparities literally come down to like how much you sleep.
Yes.
Right? Like, and I think that's really what we're trying to attack here head on, as a part of like the movement to like elevate us and to gain, equity and equality for our people, is like, when everybody's like getting the most sleep, when everybody's a homeowner, when everybody has, the same economic opportunity, that's when we're like looking at equity and equality. Mm-hmm. When we're not talking about something like the amount of sleep that somebody gets. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It really does go down to that. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around for this new season of Re-Educated, a podcast where we're relearning, rethinking, and getting re-educated on many topics related to Black folks in our community here in New Mexico. Again, we want to thank the Office of African American Affairs for giving us this platform, and make sure you go and visit the website, follow on all social media platforms, and like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff that helps to elevate this podcast so that we can stick around and keep going on this journey of learning with our audience. So that was Better Sense that you guys heard over the break. And they do all of our recording and post-production. So we also could not do this podcast without Better Sense. So big shout out to them. Before we went into the break, we were discussing all of the topics that we covered during our first season of Re-Educated. And we had some really, really good ones. We had some amazing guests. We really were able to cover some topics that I feel like people relate to, you know what I mean? And things that people are really up against right now. So another one that we covered was housing. And that's a big one. I mean, New Mexico, as we all know, if you're just a person, even without looking at the data, if you're a person that lives in the city of Albuquerque, but the state of New Mexico, you see that housing is an issue. So we already know that for Black folks, that's going to be amplified when it comes to those disparities. So we definitely touched on that and talked about it.
Yeah, you were like, that was a strong 5 minutes where you were just going smooth. You must have worked in radio or something.
Just for a little bit.
Oh, all right, my fault. But yeah, definitely when it comes to the Black community, housing is it's a very touchy subject just because, again, the history we talked about in season 1, there were so many things that the federal government put in place to pretty much marginalize and pigeonhole Black people from getting proper housing, from being in certain neighborhoods. And it essentially came to the point to where there's like pieces of legislation that said if you're Black, that you couldn't do this, or only white people could get these opportunities. And so still having that premise that was set for, and that precedence that was set for white people having certain opportunities and Black people not being able to go to certain neighborhoods, or having to, again, fly for the white person's walk, we're still trying to break down those barriers and dismantle the system that the federal government and certain state governments created to, again, marginalize and oppress Black people when it comes to housing.
Yeah, and what's wild about it is these laws that we are talking about, this wasn't that long ago.
Yes.
I mean, this is like, we're talking decades ago, you know what I mean, in the big scheme of things. So the residual impact of that is going to be strong because, like we said, it's not that long ago, and we still see bits and pieces of those discriminatory laws when it comes to housing in our housing laws today. I mean, there's a lot of active work being done to still strip away all of that damage that was done. That has added to, the wealth gap. As we know, housing and home ownership is a large part of wealth and building generational wealth. And when we've had this disparity for so long, obviously, in this country, we started, in bondage, and then the bondage continued even when the physical chains were removed. it continued in the form of those discriminatory laws in housing and elsewhere. So that is a huge part of fighting the system that brings us down. Is how do we figure out ways to even the playing field in that area?
Yeah, and just to kind of point out one of the things that you just said, this was not long ago.
It wasn't long ago. And that's what's wild.
And it's like when I have conversations with like my mom and my grandma, lucky to still have them and stuff, but when I have conversations with them, they are talking about stuff that was in the history books and the things and the stories and the content in the history books that I learned about growing up. They're very skewed, but they like have things in black and white, and the narrative that they have makes it seem like, oh, this was so long ago, you shouldn't worry about it. That's all in the past. Yeah. When this is actually very prevalent, and there's living historical individuals that have experienced all the things that we've had in the history books.
Yeah,
and it's
firsthand.
Like exactly, and it's I don't know, it's just a interesting dynamic that we have to get over stuff. Oh, this happened so long ago. Don't worry about it.
Nah, bruh. It was literally not that long ago. It's within, people's lifetime that we, like you said, that are around today. So I'm glad that we were able to touch on that and, learn more about, the history surrounding that and how we can, elevate and move us forward and close that gap in housing for Black folks in our community. So
yeah, definitely. And just going into the next subject, I know again, athletics is big for me, and it's going to be interesting to just kind of talk about athletics now. And like, there's just been this movement, the Let Them Play movement, which I have mixed emotions about it. I know we'll talk about it a little bit later, but man, I don't know. It just feels like, athletics wasn't even created to include us. And it went from being a privileged sport, which is still a lot of privilege in certain sports, but it went from that to, okay, this is going to be the plantation for Black people and people of color to use. And then it's like with the sports that aren't as expensive, like basketball, soccer, football, where you just need one ball. It's, I don't know, just the media attention and like the money that is made from it. And again, like, people just wanting us to get back on that field. Don't worry about everything. I just want to see you play.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting to me is like, let them play as if everybody wants to go during a pandemic and go, sacrifice themselves essentially, because that's how some people feel like they're being thrown into the line of fire with this virus. And so it's so funny how it's, even the term is coined, let them play, where it's like makes you think that it's all of these athletes that want to go and want to do this, when really it's the consumers, it's the people that are the onlookers and the fans that are like, get back out there, do your thing. Like, we want to watch, we want to entertain us. Yeah. That's what you're here for, and I think that really is kind of that undercurrent that we experience, where it's just like, that's what you're good for. Like, entertain me. Yeah. Entertain me regardless of a pandemic. Entertain me regardless of your health and safety. Yeah. That's what you're good for. And
just because I want to see it, just because I'm going through all this and stuff, you have to help me get my mind off of the stuff that I'm going through. It's like, why are you putting all this on us, all this on the athletes? Yeah. And one of the things that is more recent, I know we're going to talk about it more, but just to touch on it, with the All-Star game, I remember LeBron saying that he didn't want to do the All-Star game and they agreed not to do it, but then it was probably fans like, why aren't we having the All-Star game? What are we going to do? And it's like, people are forced into certain situations that they want to be in. And so I can talk about that for hours. And that's gonna be our next episode. So make sure you tune in. But there's a lot of very intense emotions with Let Them Play. And so
100%. That's we're gonna get into it this season, because I feel like, just setting the stage of, if we think about where we are in time and like what this last year has really looked like in terms of, you know, the civil rights movement that's happening right now, in terms of the pandemic, in terms of, you know, just everything that's happening. It's just been a packed year. I mean, we have been through so much in a calendar year that it just paints a whole different stage for these topics. You know, like who would have thought we'd be on a podcast talking about, you know, athletics in the day and age of like a pandemic, right?
Exactly.
But that's where we're at.
Oh, yeah.
We gonna talk about it.
Definitely. And the last thing that we touched on last season was just Black employment. And again, it's one of those things where there's such a bad representation. And I know I keep going back to athletics because that's my thing, but you just look at athletic institutions like universities and colleges and even high schools where you have all these Black kids and all these people, kids of color, or, you know, students of color. And it's like, where are the Black coaches that are represented? Where are the Black administrators? Why is there a disproportionate ratio of Black administrators to Black students?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's again like a plantation style where all the Black people are like pigeonholed, all the workers are pigeonholed into a specific area. And then you got people who aren't Black who don't have the same experiences trying to tell you what to do and how to go about doing things. And
and I don't think that's not even, you know, that's not even unique to education or to athletics or to, I think that we see that on a level in all of society, you know, on a national level. Look at the cabinet, you know what I mean? Look at our government. And this is not a biased thing. It's not one side or the other. It's literally just like our government. We're all, you know, under the same government. And we haven't seen even a cabinet this diverse in a long time. We have, you know, a Black female vice president. We have now, you know, transgender individuals and all just kinds of people across the spectrum that we've never seen in some of these positions. Now people see themselves represented in these positions, and that really does something for you. It really does, and for the country, even not for just Black folks, but for other people to see us, you know, in revered positions, to see us in positions of power. That really does do something to shifting the, you know, the dynamic and to see us painted in a way that's not disrespectful, that's not stereotypical, that's not, you know what I mean? I think that representation is so important. So I was just drawing that comparison, kind of zooming out to the macro, you know what I mean? Because yes, in athletics and education, it's important to have us in positions other than the ones that are, you know, we're entertaining or we're, you know, playing the sport. But also on a, you know, on a more macro level, we need to be in all positions. We need to be represented at all levels. So. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And again, like you were saying, just to see how dynamic we actually are being showcased in positions of power and influence. Like we still have a long way to go, but we're definitely making headway to where we need to be. And that headway doesn't come without the work from us. It doesn't come from, you know, without us in our everyday lives making the changes that we can make, you know, being actively anti-racist, you know, even if you're not a person of color, you know, if you have a platform, you know, make it a point to put Black voices on your platform. Make it a point to showcase Black art on your platform. Make it a point to, you know, step aside when it's really not your turn or your place to speak on something. Let the person of color or that Black person speak on that, you know? So there's ways that our allies can, you know, continue to do the work as well as, you know, as we continue to fight and do the work to push this movement forward. So. Yeah, definitely. And
just segueing into the next thing, the amazing work that we do, we always have to recognize and just bring positivity to everything we do. Mm-hmm. And I think that we do an amazing job, especially, again, with our studio, Better Sense, helping us out with having the glow and really just highlighting the glow that we have as Black people to be melanated individuals and doing amazing, phenomenal work to mobilize our communities.
Yeah, for sure. And just being, because sometimes it's not always, you don't have to do the most extravagant thing. Sometimes the glow is just in who we are and in following our passions, and in doing so that contributes to uplifting our community and our society. So we always are going to make sure to highlight individuals, businesses, organizations within the glow that are doing amazing things and just shining.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with that, this edition of The Glow is going to be two individuals. It's going to be Danny Golden, a.k.a. Clark, and Better Sense with Marcus Scott, with Danny officially doing singles and doing release dates to segue into her first official album. And, Marcus Scott and Better Sense powering that whole movement and getting her ready. And so I just had to, for this first edition of The Glow, definitely had to highlight you and shout you out on what you're doing.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. So you guys can follow my music. You can find all of my music, Clark's music, on all of the major platforms, on Spotify, Apple Music, and you can find me on Instagram at Clark. So CLARQ.music with a Q at the end, MUSIQ. Clark.music on Instagram. And keep up with me. And you can see also my updates on when I'm releasing new music on my United Masters page. All of that, of course, is on my Instagram. So just go to my Instagram and check out my very first debut single, Phone Off, on all of those platforms that I mentioned earlier. I'm really excited about that single and excited to bring y'all the EP soon. Very, very soon.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm excited to listen to it too. I know Better Sense has a lot of other projects that they're working on. And so I'm also excited to listen to those and get tuned in. And so.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. That really brings us to the close of our very first episode of the second season of Re-Educated. Thank you all for listening. It's been fun. Remember to go and follow us on social media. The Office of African American Affairs you can find on Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah.
What else? Facebook.
Facebook, all those platforms. And if you go to the website at aaa.state.nm.us, you can see it right here.
Yay.
I don't know if I'm I'm like, should I
superimpose something?
Yeah, I know, like I'm gonna just have something right here in this corner. But yeah, you can follow all of our social media, and you can see all of our content if you go to our website at oaaa.state.nm.us. You'll also be able to see the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, and for a little bit extra flair, you can see it on YouTube, where we have the video components. We'll also give a little bit of behind the scenes and give some features to what's coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. So stay connected with us. We hope that you guys will join us for our next episode. And thank you very much. Like we said, go follow, share, all that good stuff. And we will see you next time here for Re-Educated.
Deuces. Oh, you want me?
What you want to do?
What you want? Rock, paper, scissors. Shoot. See, that
was
a rock, man. That was a protruding rock. You got rocks are all like this. So I got this. All right, hold on. All right. There we go.
All right.
See, got in their head. You mess up the first time.
So wait.
You win the second.
Are you doing it or
that means you do it.
I have to do it? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to flatten out his rock.
Nah, shoot. The rock's already right there. You might as well close it all the way up. You feel me?
Whatever. All right. Right. So, yeah, Devin definitely sprung that on me since we got this on video.
What was that cue?
22 minutes.
I'll let them know what you can do, man. Your versatility.
Yeah. You guys ready to go again?
We ready? I'm like, I don't know why I keep looking at that. It's like,
me too.
I'm like, you ready? The camera's actually right there.
That's funny.
What is that?
Time? Okay.
All right.